Welcome to this very interesting looking picture. Probably thinking, what are you looking at? Why am I bringing up a picture of wine and beer and all this kind of thing on the Real Me podcast? Why? Why did I decide to go on the internet and select a picture of wine and beer to bring up in this video? Why? Well, that's what we're talking about today on the Real Me podcast. And with this, in this podcast, I share my most real, authentic self. So if you want the polished, well-spoken, intelligent version of who I am, with everything prepared, and that was weird. Um, Something just, popped up on my computer, but I trust that this is still recording since it says pause, stop recording. So something just popped up on my screen. I said no to it, and I don't think that this recording is stopped. And even if it did, I wouldn't start it over because I don't start recordings over for any reason whatsoever. So, um, like I make that a non-negotiable for myself that I'm not going to get into and feed perfectionism. So on this podcast, I share my most real, my most authentic self to you. And if you want the thing with well prepared and the more professional podcast, then I would go over to my Cosmic Sky podcast um, on YouTube and Spotify. I don't post this kind of content on Spotify. This is too personal, too real to want to post over there. I want to keep those things separate. I don't want to mingle the two together. So and I wonder if TikTok will even allow me to put this on here. I will post this, and if it doesn't allow me, and if it bans this video, well, not my deal. Because this video is very, very clean. This is just me sharing my honest thoughts about alcohol. And if I can't share my honest thoughts in videos, I don't know about TikTok. I don't know. It's just a very, very weird thing. They had those obnoxious videos on there that are allowed, and this video that I posted on there, um, an episode that actually that actually I was violating. I was like, what? Me violating a TikTok, rule? Okay, those two things are like an oxymoron. They don't even go together. They do not even go together into one because yeah, my videos are not the swearing, obnoxious videos you see on TikTok. Yet that video is banned. And I was talking about people in the comment section. I didn't even name them. I didn't even call them names. And it got banned. Like, what is that about? Then I read its policies when I was submitting an appeal. And I read its policy. Well, it didn't tell me exactly what its policies were. So, I didn't even know what, and I'm not going to overthink it. So I will attempt to post this. And if it gets violated, then it gets violated. Um, but I certainly won't post this on, Spotify. So, you know, I'm not going to be careful about the content that I post. God forbid, my real, authentic content on this podcast. God forbid. You know, so I don't think that there's anything inappropriate. I don't feel that there's anything inappropriate in this video. So if it gets banned, that's how the cookie crumbles. So delving right into this. Um, you could and I share my most real self. This is what this podcast is the real me. I called it that for a reason. Title came very, very easily. I could call it my name podcast, but I just feel like, the real me. I like that name to it. So let's ask the question, why on earth does alcohol even exist? as a substance, as something that you can drink, as something that you can consume. Why does it even exist? Because I was seeing, many episodes of World's Strictest Parents, and they did not allow alcohol in their homes. And there was this Mormon family, this really, really strict Mormon family. There was like alcohol, sex, and drugs, like they ruin lives, like they don't even touch alcohol. And, I'm not going to give you a whole reasoning and research of why alcohol exists and, why, it even exists for starters, because, this is not a research-based video. This is not an informational video. That's the Cosmic Sky. This is the platform. This is the door that you've walked into is the real just contemplation version without the look. So if I do create and make up things in this podcast that I am perfectly allowed, I'll give myself all the space in the world to do it. So why does alcohol even exist? Maybe it was used to heal wounds. Like alcohol can be used as very effective for healing wounds, for healing the ouch, because it's a strong substance. And why alcohol exists is because if you didn't have it in food, such as Henny vodka, chicken marsala, and all kinds of dishes like that, the taste would be kind of boring. You do have to look at the different sides of this, where the taste would be very boring, or not. I don't want to even say that. I don't want to say boring. It would be less than you would certainly notice a difference. But would you really know? Okay, this is the big thing. Would you really notice the difference if you didn't taste the dish with alcohol at all, or would you notice the difference and be disappointed and be sad about it if you tasted the dish with alcohol in it? And then it was taken away from you, it was ripped away from you, and you didn't taste it wasn't in there. And you tasted it. So I do think that when it is in food, it can be good because it adds something to the food. When you cook it in food, you burn off the alcohol, like, you're the Holy Trinity, the butter, bourbon, bacon, Kentucky, I'm thinking of um uh uh the winner of Food Network Star Season 13, who um, you know, used slang a lot. And I wonder how old that he is, because he seems like a very old, older person. And yet he presents himself in this way, which is younger. Um, excuse me, older. And yet he is younger. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in my head doing this. So it burns off. You don't even taste the alcohol. If wine can be without alcohol, it's great. And if wine can heal wounds and be effective for treating medicine and all of that, and whatever else that's good for treating the negative stuff, then it's great. It's just great. Drinking alcohol. Hmm. Okay. Now we're getting into some darker waters here, deeper waters here. Alcohol is a monster. It's a demon and it ruins lives. Ruins lives. And the same could be said about smoking. Oh my gosh. One of the greatest things that I remember about my grandfather is that he smoked every single day. He smoked a pipe. And his generation, they smoked all the time. Day to day, they smoked. Like it was a norm to, find people in, regular society in his generation. He was born in 1936 and grew up all throughout the 1940s and 50s. It was common, for, people, to be smoking regularly in public places. And now it's just taboo. And we really, really see that the devastating and the ramifications and the more negative effects of and the destructive qualities of alcohol and smoking. Every time I walk into it's a wonder I didn't get sick from my grandparents' house. It's a wonder that I got so accustomed to it as I was because he had a lot of Taurus in his chart, very, very, very stubborn, would not let things go. He was very, very rigid and very, very in his comfort zone, liked his things around him, was very, very stuck in his, ways and sort of having this oblivious quality toward the other surroundings. It was like, we had to cater to him. He had to be taken care of. And it's like you need to actively play the role of the active harmonizer, the active socializer, the active one who has a lot of peace when it comes to who you are. I mean, the one who has the active peace to really, really be to really, really be peaceful. And to be peaceful is not to be stubborn. It is not to be stubborn and set in your ways. When it comes to when it comes to uh, just you know, it's like Lilith and Libra. He has Lilith and Libra. Um, you know, not being allowed what when showing, maybe rejected for showing very, very harmonious, very diplomatic, very people pleasing, codependent qualities. So, there's some healing and some shadow work that has need to be done about that, and that was really just a little sliver of air. He didn't have really hardly any air in his chart. I don't want to make it the bad thing because everybody's natal chart is unique to, who they are as unique individuals. And I happen to have a lot of air in my natal chart, and he had barely any. And I just think that with our relationship, we didn't bond really, really closely. I didn't, I missed out on a lot of opportunities to talk and get to know his life and get to know insights, and I do regret that. But it was hard because he was very, very closed, very, very shy, really, really introverted into himself, suffered from a lot of depression throughout a lot of his life, very, very severe, even life-threatening depression and anxiety. Really, really, huge issues with this, drastic issues. And and uh um and had to be hospitalized for things like that. I mean, it's kind of revealing for me to reveal these details about this to you, but I am openly doing it because it feels right. And I'm going to give myself permission to reveal whatever it feels right without it being exposed. So, um, and I think that the huge reason, why he came to, turning to alcohol and all those kind of things, and I think that if you're going to be, peaceful, and if you're going to want peace and actively play a role, don't ever expect everyone to cater to your needs. Um, because to be peaceful is to also be flexible. Not the most flexible type. Not the most flexible to several things. Inflexible is not known for being a Taurus quality. I don't know what that sound was. Um, you know, Gemini, that's the mutable qualities of being really, really flexible, open to change. So, um, now, um, okay. So every time I walked into the house, I stepped in the house, there was the smell of smoke. I would see him, we would constantly be smoking. He was an absolute creature of habit, his creature comforts. Watched TV, stayed up at night, had a very, very weird sleep schedule, and smoked. And smoking, like alcohol, is an addiction. That's why I'm combining the two together. That's why I'm talking about the two, together in that kind of way. So, um, with this, um, okay. So he smoked. I think that got him through a lot of his depression, a lot of his anxiety. I've gone through a lot of depression and anxiety in my life, a lot of very, very difficult times and a lot of very, very difficult instances and moments in my life with depression, and I have never turned to alcohol or drugs to heal that. I found other modes of healing that. Like there are constructive means to heal your depression and anxiety and escape. Like we use drugs and alcohol as a means of escaping this reality because we feel so depressed and down and hopeless and anxious. And we're turning to drugs and alcohol as a means to escape. And what it does is it raises our vibration. It's like, wow, I'm so free. I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling so elated. Feeling so liberated. Um, and it makes us feel better. It makes us more stable, more secure. Well, I don't want to say that, but just like we don't have to succumb to the negative depression and the anxiety. So it's a form of relief. It's a form of relieving yourself of all those kind of things. But there's also this out part of that show that I was watching, that World Searches Parents, where there was this where they were um there was this choir, and it was a really, really ridiculous and sort of weird performance of a choral performance, but like singing as a means of and I trust that if you're very, very much of a Christian religion, you will not and have faith in God, you will not turn to drugs and alcohol. So, like they were saying, like, you can turn to songs, you can turn to books, you can turn to, doing videos, you can turn to, dancing, you can, like all these outlets, you can turn and talk to people about these things and gain clear, like all these much more constructive and better ways as opposed to abusing and hurting your body with alcohol and drugs. Like, you know, there are better ways. There are more, evolved ways of doing this. And it is very, very unevolved to get into drugs and alcohol and drinking for things like, depression and anxiety and all that. So, the fact is, alcohol and drugs ruins your life, ruins your life. Um, I can't tell you the many cases of people who have gone to jail for drinking, drunk driving, have running into accidents, people who have gotten to bar fights, hit people, smack people, punch people, hurt others. It's just so fascinating to study alcohol because it's into your mind and it's a chemical where it just interferes with that. It messes with your ability to think clearly, to reason, to be very, very logical, to be very, very use your it or whatever it's called. I'm gonna take psychology this fall on my college classes, so I'll be, understanding that more deeply. Um, you know, so with psychology, because I'll be taking psychology, and we may talk about the id and the ego, and I'm excited to learn more about that. And sometime maybe before that class, I'll be getting a book, and maybe I'll read up on psychology, so I'll have a leg up before taking that class this fall. So, um, you know, it, it ruins lives. You know, it ruins lives to drink. Ruins lives to drink. Really, really messes with your life, messes with your happiness, messes with your running reality. And it is so not spiritual to turn to drugs and alcohol. That's the lower to Pisces. As Pisces has a tendency to involve, with drugs and alcohol and, escape into this kind of things. Um, because Neptune, rules over that, and that was really, really huge. But in the 19th century, when Neptune was discovered, so um, now, um, you know, I turned 21 last year, and 21 is the legal age to drink. And I tasted alcohol, and it was the most disgusting, bitter taste. The most disgusting, um, weirdest, like, rotten grape juice, rotten, tainted grape juice, grape juice from hell. That's the title for it. Grape juice from hell. It's a very, very good title. Very, very good title. That's an excellent title for drinking and drugs and alcohol. Uh, well, alcohol really. Um, oh well, you say, oh, you get used to the taste. You do all that, and I drink coffee. I drink coffee sometimes more regularly than others. I cut back on the amount of sugar that I have, and like coffee, the taste is bitter, but you get used to the taste. And coffee is much well, it does make you, really, really hyper and addicted to it. But again, that's the kind of thing where in moderation it is good. I do believe that in moderation, coffee can be good with, knowing your limits and doing what is right for you, not overthinking it, not making it logical, but cutting yourself off from it when you feel like, okay, I've had enough and I need to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to be all, hyper and, bouncing off the walls with it. So, but alcohol, um, I think, and I'm just going to say it as the truth, it should not be drunk, drinking at all because it's addictive. I don't have to discipline myself with the food because I'm afraid that over going overboard with it ruins your life. Completely and utterly ruins your life. I am so terrified that I will drink a glass of alcohol and I will not know when to stop, and then I will be acting all crazy. I will be swearing. I will be, and I don't curse. Typically, I don't curse. The only time I curse is when I'm rehearsing the voice in my head that curses, that is so annoying, that is out of my life now because I've done a lot of work to heal and get over that voice for saying it out loud. So that's the only time when I do curse, but other times normal conversation and in videos I do not curse. Where I think that the videos that you see of me is really very, very similar to the person that you would see in me in my real life, and I try not to be two different people, one on social media, a whole different person, and in real life. I try to be one person, just more real, authentic version online because it's so for videos, it's different than when you're actually talking to somebody. Like when I'm making videos, I'm just fully allowed to be myself. Like there's none of the other person where I'm naturally aware of them, I'm in conversation with them. And so I act in those kind of ways. So this is who I am on videos. So, and that's what you have to separate out. So I don't think that people should be drinking alcohol at all. I think it should be outlawed as a thing that is dangerous, that is taboo, that should not be allowed in society to drink. Oh, I don't care about the toast that you do and the whatever. But don't poke the bear. Don't get on the wagon. I am so afraid that I'm going to be accustomed to it and I'm going to become addicted to it. It's going to ruin my life. Because then I'm going to be on video saying something that is just out of my mind to say that I would never say in my conscious, reasonable mind to say. And if you see my videos, you're like, this person is just so arrogant, and this person is just so what like intense and like does he ever have an op? And can he ever just calm down? Well, this is who I am, okay? I know what I'm doing. I'm perfectly aware of myself, and you have to trust that I am a very, very realistic and grounded person. And this is how I express myself. I just happen to want to create a lot of videos, and this is who I am. I come in very, very strong with the videos. This is who I am. I grew up in a way where making videos was my life, was my creative outlet. I didn't have barely any friends. I grew up just an only child with my two parents, and making videos was my life. So that is my truth, one of my truths, and I will never stop doing it. It is my life. It always has been since age 6, 7. It's been with me since that time, and it will never, ever not be in my life. So, so you can always rely on me to update my channel and show consistency with my content. And of course, something drastic happens where I absolutely do not have the ability to not. I'm willing to constantly update your channel, constantly keep inundating it with content. So, um, okay. So I think I'm getting to my points here with this that I wanted to express here. Um, I don't want to ruin my life. I want to go down the path of those who are loud, those who lose their mind, those who act in crazy ways, those who burn bridges, those who destroy relationships, those who destroy things and throw things and hurt and 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 rip things to shreds and say things that they regret and do things that they regret and act out of impulse and all of that stuff. I don't want to do it because my personality as it is, I would be ticket to moon one, and I would be totally lost my mind and going off the deep end if I, in particular, had a drop of alcohol. I don't want to feed the monster at all. I want to leave the monster sleeping and bothering other people and hurting other people. and engaging with others, I don't want to get hurt by that monster that alcohol is, because it is a monster if you drink it. Like, I will not even go there. I'll find other ways to celebrate my time. I'm not drinking alcohol. I have far better things to do and far better choices to make. Because when you start, you're off. And I would be absolutely humiliated and my whole reputation would go out the window. And I would be furious with myself, like really, really like angry at myself and not being able to, live with myself if I got drunk. Like I really, really had this fear of becoming drunk. And I don't want to even face the fear because it doesn't feel right for me. I never had alcohol. The very few times I did, I couldn't stand the taste. I have no intention of acquiring the taste of alcohol in my life. I'm perfectly able, perfectly willing. Doesn't mean I'm gonna be a 20-year-old, person is 20. It's just, drinking away and living the big life and, throwing glasses into the fireplace like great expectations and, doing all those things that people in their 20s typically do. I didn't even post the same content, like all this ridiculous content that I see people my age posting that I do not post. I post way more often and I think way better content than they ever post, which I am proud to claim and say. And, I know of someone who was 27 when she decided I'm stopping the drinking of alcohol. Um, and, really, really learned it the hard way through her experiences being an alcoholic and, drinking and all that. And I do not want to go on that path in my life. I'm not giving into, it's kind of just like money, how, resistant I am to money. Like all these aspects of our society and our life, alcohol, money, sex is another thing that I will not be having in my life. So you can check that taboo out of my list. Like all those things, all those ego stuff. Like I truly believe that alcohol is an ego thing. It's where you're so deluded and you're not seeing yourself clearly and you're not having a good sense of self-worth about yourself and solid sense of valuing yourself enough to recognize I love myself and I care about myself, so I'm not going to drink alcohol in a way that's going to ruin my life. I don't want to give into the societal aspects of life that are ego driven and ego based. I want to live in a soul centered way, in a soul centered fashion in my life, with alcohol not reigning supreme in my life, because I won't even go there. I'm not going to even touch a drop of it. I'm not going to even go there, you know. So I believe that that is all that I wanted to say in this episode of the Real Me podcast. There's just little contemplation about alcohol, hoping that this video does not get banned from TikTok. I don't know if it does. I'm very, very unsure about it, but if it does, so be it. You know, so if I can't share my honest thoughts about anything on this podcast, well, what's the point? So I'm still gonna post things, and if they get banned, they get banned. So I'm not gonna waste my time wondering, is this, right to do, and just getting all analysis paralysis and neurotic about videos being banned on certain sites. Well, I will naturally know, naturally, it's a feeling that's right. Like if it doesn't feel right to make this and post this, I won't do it. But I'm gonna see. So, anyway, I thought that I would just contemplate this tonight because all these episodes of contemplation. I'll see you back for another contemplation of the Real Me podcast, and I will see you back where I am tying up loose ends for past astrological events that I got rid of on my original channel. So tune in for that episode on the Cosmic Sky podcast tomorrow, and I want to do a video on Saturn and Aries in my podcast on my Cosmic Sky podcast, going over the themes of Saturn hours. I have a video on my YouTube channel, but I want to have a podcast episode, so I'll wake up really, really early Tuesday morning to do that, and then I'll sort of be gone on Thursday because my mom has a surgery that's going on, so I will not. There will be no podcast episodes on Thursday of this week from me. Nothing posted, just the short that comes out every day. No, I don't think any Real Me podcast or any Cosmic Sky episode, nothing like that on Thursday. So anyway, I thought I'd just say that. And bye for now, everyone. See you next time.